make sure to follow us on Instagram at Whistlethrowers. It's a great way to interact with our show. Our DMs are always open for questions, topic discussions, and more. You will be able to find our new episodes and other announcements there.
I think now, after seeing what LeBron did breaking score record, just thinking about what he's done throughout his career, I cannot say anymore that Jordan's the best player.
All right, thanks for tuning back to the Whistlethrowers podcast. This is Jack Mubarak, joined by
Jack Slaymaker
And Aiden Dixinski.
And so it's actually been an entertaining week in the NBA, which has been a change of things recently. Right before we started recording, there was a 3-team trade between the Lakers, the Jazz, and the Timberwolves. The main centerpieces for this trade were Russell Westbrook, D'Angelo Russell, and Mike Conley. And the Lakers received D'Angelo Russell, Malik Beasley, and Jared Vanderbilt. And the Timberwolves got Mike Conley and a couple undisclosed picks to this point. The Utah Jazz got Russell Westbrook and a 2027 first-round pick from Los Angeles. Initial thoughts?
I'm not sure if it does much in terms of the general landscape of the NBA. I think this is a pretty net neutral move for the Timberwolves and the Jazz. Well, maybe not as much for the Jazz, but definitely the Timberwolves. I don't think the Timberwolves got really any better, and I'm not really sure they got worse either, but the Jazz, same thing. For the immediate time being, nothing really, but they compiled a lot of picks, and I just saw a tweet, I think from Woj, that was saying the Jazz have assembled 15 unprotected or lightly protected first-round picks through 2029, which is just insane, and it's no surprise with Danny Ainge being their GM. And then as for the Lakers, I think Russell is a better option for them than Westbrook, without a doubt. And then I do like Malik Beasley and Jared Vanderbilt now coming off the bench, or Beasley might even get a starting role. But I'm not sure if the team around them is good enough. I think when you're adding Russell, Beasley, and Vanderbilt, you have a team that's right on the cusp of contending, and then these are the guys that push you over. I think the Lakers are trading for these guys to push them into the playoffs, and I'm not really sure that these are the impact guys that they are needing to push them into the playoffs.
Yeah, I definitely thought that the Lakers got the best return
for sure
of any team. I actually could see Russell Westbrook getting bought out and not even playing a game for Utah.
Yeah.
I don't really see him having a stint there. Mm-hmm. But Timberwolves, this was definitely to dump D'Angelo Russell's contract, obviously, because they have 2 even worse contracts that they can't get rid of if they tried. I don't know if you saw the other day, but Rudy Gobert had only 5 rebounds, 1 turnover, and 1 block in 19 minutes.
Yeah, no points, no assists. Yeah, nothing. Yeah.
They have a really shitty situation over there. I don't know how you're going to... Even still, now that you got rid of D'Angelo Russell on that max contract, I don't know how you're going to give a max to Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, they really dug themselves a deep, deep hole when they paid Gobert that huge contract with just not really any thought going into it. When you're going to pay a guy $200 million, you're paying a guy who is all around able to take over a basketball game. And although Gobert is a good defender, he isn't a guy who's going to take over the game even on the defensive end. He's very easily mismatched out, really, and he can become a non-factor, which is the case for a lot of defenders in the NBA. So I don't think it was smart. Obviously, it's not smart at all for them to pay strictly a defender $200 million. And now you're running into this, you had a decent top 3 with Cat, Edwards, and D'Lo. That's a pretty good 3. You just needed 1 more. And paying that 1 more $200 million is the right idea, but it was the wrong player, the complete wrong guy. And honestly, I think they should have, looking back on it, they should have kept Beasley and Vanderbilt and not have traded them for Gobert. That was just a really stupid move. And it's really hurting them now because now you're right. They're going to struggle to pay Edwards what he wants. And when they pay Edwards what he wants, they aren't going to be able to expand their roster much outside of what they have in the cap. So it was a stupid move.
Yeah, I am interested in the fact that the Lakers were able to move Westbrook with his trade. They've been trying to for a while, obviously, and just hadn't found the right market for him. But he was playing well off the bench in recent games, especially last night's game. He played very well off the bench. So I don't really know what the Lakers are expecting to get out of this.
Mm-hmm.
And like you guys said, they got somewhat better to make a push for a playoff spot. But at this point, they're so deep out of it. And obviously, the West is so wide open unless you're the bottom two teams that any team has a chance of making it. But I still don't feel like even when the Lakers are adding these pieces, it makes them a team that can even get out of the play-in tournament.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, like, granted, they are only 2 games out of that last play-in spot. The Jazz hold it. But they're still behind the Thunder and Trailblazers. And I'm not really sure if the Lakers got better than them. Like, this whole thing with LeBron and AD has just not really worked out for them outside of the bubble. And I'm not sure what it is because they're 2 of the most prolific talents in the league right now. But it's like when you talk about falling off a cliff outside of your top 2, the Lakers are the epitome of that. They just have nothing outside of LeBron and AD. And then on top of that, AD struggles to stay on the floor. So LeBron is just running with a bunch of nobodies right now. I don't necessarily want to say nobodies because they have some good young players. You know, even good might be a stretch for them. Like, they're just not guys that are going to impact the game enough for you to get a playoff spot. And no, you can go ahead.
They've been very aggressive throughout the trade deadline. I mean, they got Roy Hachimura for not really. I forget who did they get up to get Hachimura. So what's that?
Kendrick Nunn.
Yeah, which isn't like a huge give up for them. Hachimura has a huge upside. Mm-hmm. So you added Schroeder, you have Beverly. Now you've added a couple more solid role players. They're doing what most teams do when it sort of feels like that they're struggling. Mm-hmm. But also the pieces that they're getting almost feels like that they're building for a future after LeBron, which could be interesting to see what happens. D'Lo's turned into a very nice player since he left the Lakers the first time. It'll be interesting to see what happens to him now that he's come back. It feels sort of like the Lakers are at a crossroads where they have a couple of these aging stars. Obviously, LeBron's going to sell tickets considering that he now just broke the scoring record. I mean, the Lakers sold out that game. The crowd was as enthusiastic as you'd be for the Lakers this season. So it'll be interesting to see what these players turn into, how long the Lakers end up leaving them, and if they struggle in the next 2 to 3 years, are they just going to trade these guys for draft picks?
Agreed. And like you're saying, I do see them trying to build a future after LeBron, and it seems like they're just building a young core that they're going to add superstars around, you know, when they kind of get Davis and James off the books. It's something that the Lakers can do, you know, because they're an enticing organization. They're an enticing free agency destination for any superstar. Although some of their moves have been really questionable of recently. I'm talking in like the last 3 years. Like, I think getting Westbrook in itself was a questionable move. You know, paying him, his contract was $30 million, and you could already see he was on the decline. That was a questionable move, but at the same time, it seems like they're kind of finding their way out of it, or at least finding a wiggle room out when James and Davis are gone, like you said, Aiden. And I kind of like some of the players they have. Like, Hachimura is young and he has upside. I like Lonnie Walker, who they got from San Antonio. I like Austin Reeves, who they drafted in the second round. Like, these are decent players that with superstars around them, they can help you, but that's the key. You need to get the superstars around them.
Yeah.
Luckily for the Lakers, the fact they play in LA and just the history of the franchise makes it an easy selling point for superstars.
Right.
So I don't think they'll have a problem with that once they can get LeBron and AD off the books.
I actually feel way more optimistic than you guys do with these young guys. I mean, I feel like Rui Hachimura, D'Angelo Russell, Malik Beasley, Austin Reeves, Jared Vanderbilt, like, that's a good group on its own. And then you throw in LeBron James and day-to-day Davis when he plays. Mm-hmm. Like, that could win a lot of games if they're all together and playing. Mm-hmm. But will they all be together and playing is a question.
Yeah.
And I'm like a really big D'Angelo Russell fan. You guys know. I think him and LeBron are just going to work amazing together. Like, they're two very high IQ guys. I feel like he's going to have a Brooklyn-esque year working with LeBron because he has someone who shares his selflessness for getting guys the ball and using others to succeed for the team. So it'll be interesting to see. I definitely do think they will make the play-in now, maybe even the playoffs, because like the West is really empty to me, so that's why I'm a little more optimistic. But yeah, we'll see. It'll be really interesting. There's nothing really to write home about with what the Timberwolves got. I think they got significantly worse.
I agree.
Their situation is terrible.
Yeah,
to begin with.
No, I mean, this is something we talked about too. When you got Gobert for that huge contract, when you already had a power forward in Towns, why you would get another big man? It didn't make sense at the time. It looks even worse now.
Yeah. The
Timberwolves, to me, just scream mediocrity every year, and there's no reason that should be the case. I get that there's always been issues about Towns' work ethic, and Anthony Edwards is turning into a solid player, but he's still shaky at times. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's one of the best young players in the game, but there's still improvement within his game. But it just never feels like that they give any of their guys time to build on that and either make these really aggressive moves way too soon or do nothing for 5 years. And either way, that's not what you should do as a franchise.
Agreed.
Okay, so I think we could move on. Aiden mentioned it last night. LeBron took the scoring record from Kareem. Wow, I'm just shocked.
Yeah, it really puts into perspective like the greatness we've witnessed. And like, you know, for us three, we are guys who were just about 3 or 4 years old when LeBron entered the league, and just to see, you know, we're 21 years old now and he is still at the top of the game. It was all like a cherry on top. I feel like when he got the scoring title, just because it really showed his greatness and dominance in the league over all these years, all these decades. Like, I used to not like LeBron, mainly because I didn't like when he went to the Heat. Like, that was really my only reason for not liking him. I liked him when he was on the Cavs, his first stint. And then when he went back, you know, I lightened up on him a little bit. But now I'm really a fan of LeBron. Like, just his career has been great. And it's rare when you get an athlete with the personality and the track record that LeBron has off of the playing field. Like, LeBron has never had any bad image on him throughout his entirety of his career. Like, a lot of dudes, you know, cheat on their girls or wives, like, which is just kind of kept under wraps, but, you know, you still think about it sometimes. And, you know, there are obviously other things that people have done, but LeBron has a squeaky clean track record through it all. Like, he's a great role model. I'm just glad that he did this, and I'm glad that his career has really been where it is now.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think about that he could even get 40K points this season.
Yeah.
He's probably going to finish with like 45, 47,000.
Yeah.
So, but I did note, like, now that he passed it, I feel like his record eventually will be broken because there's like, 7 guys averaging 30 right now?
Yeah.
And we just have never seen that before. It used to be like 1 30-point scorer wins the MVP, and it's a big deal. But
yeah.
Now it's like an almost 10-guy thing. So I think in the future you will see the number get beaten at a more frequent rate.
Yeah, I can agree with that. And like, especially when you have like young people like Luka averaging 30. Like, Luka's only, 22 or 23 or something like that.
He's exactly who I thought of who would possibly be able to break LeBron's record.
Agreed.
I agree with Slay. I was always the type of person that would say Michael Jordan was the greatest basketball player of all time. But I think now, after seeing what LeBron did breaking score record and just thinking about what he's done throughout his career, I cannot say anymore that Jordan's the best player. I fully am with the idea that LeBron is the greatest basketball player ever to live. The fact that he made to 8 straight finals is incredible on its own. The fact that he then made to another final after going to the Lakers is amazing. And I get that all these teams were built around him for that, but there's been so many super teams that we thought were getting built together that have done nothing. Great example of that is the Nets. Yeah. Everyone thought the Nets were going to be the next Miami Heat. That didn't happen. LeBron's been able to keep this success while going to two different teams to have 4 straight final runs. And he carried the Cavs the last 2 years after Kyrie left. So I understand why there's going to be people that hold out and say Jordan's the best player ever, but I don't think they're really thinking about what LeBron is able to do his entire career.
Yeah, I feel like he definitely had the most impressive career. I mean, granted, Jordan kind of had like the perfect career because he went like 100% in championship series. So that's something LeBron will never do, obviously, but it was different basketball back then. And when I say different, it was like he played for 2 teams and he went to the Washington Wizards to retire. That wasn't the case for LeBron. Guys go to like 3-4 teams on average at least now, and Jordan never faced Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. He never faced a team remotely similar to that in talent.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Jordan always had the better team in the finals going up against the opponent, and I feel like LeBron has done way more carrying in the past and even in the present now because that Lakers team is not good at all.
Yeah,
it
right.
wasn't really that good.
Mm-hmm.
The year they won it all. I mean, granted, it was extreme circumstances, but LeBron is literally a one-man show. And I'm not saying that Jordan is incapable of doing what he does, but we've never seen it done the way LeBron did it. And I feel like individually, if you break it down, LeBron is just the better basketball player, and that's not taking anything away from Jordan.
Yeah.
Like, he's greater, but LeBron is better.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Like, I think that Jordan, he obviously did more winning, and like the thing is, Jordan's averages look better, but LeBron with his longevity, like his career totals look a lot better, which is like you can try and nitpick both, but to me they're both equally as impressive. Like the fact that Jordan averaged 30 for his career, and the only 2 players to do that are him and Will. The fact that LeBron is on a pedestal right now in total points with a guy like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who is like one of the most generational scorers of all time. He had probably the most signature move in NBA history with the skyhook. Like when you think of signature moves, that's number 1 without a question. Like, and now the only one that can really compete with it is a Steph Curry 3, which, what we think about is just completely dominant and unguardable. It was the same way with Kareem. And the fact that LeBron is now past a guy like Kareem, it's so hard to differentiate who's better to me. Like, I just hate thinking about the GOAT debate because I want to give it to both of them at the same time. And like, I can come up with just amazing arguments for both of them to be the greatest of all time. Like, I don't think anyone is really close at 3 to these 2.
I think it's Kareem, but there's a difference. Like, there's a pretty sizable
I think there's
difference.
a significant gap between LeBron and MJ and then the rest of the pack. Like, it's insane.
I think Kareem is unanimously 3, though. Like, you can't put anyone above him.
Yeah. I could see it.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
there's a lot of people, like, there are so many people will put at 3,
Yeah, I think Kobe's a popular answer.
Yeah.
I think especially since he passed away, it became a much more popular answer to put him at 3.
Mm-hmm.
You could put, honestly, in my opinion, if you want to do, again, I'm totally fine if you put LeBron or Jordan at 1 and 2. I think you can make arguments for both. I think it's very hard to figure out which one's better. They did play in different eras. They were both the most dominant player in both their eras by far. Even with as great as a shooter as Curry is, LeBron still is a top-tier scorer. Is 4th all-time in assists as well, which is just amazing when you think about it that way. When Jordan played, Stockton was the top-tier passer. He still has the record for assists. Karl Malone was a great scorer as well, but Jordan was just that much better than everyone else. 3, I would say at 3 you could put Wilt, Kareem, or Kobe, and I don't see a wrong answer for that.
I can agree with that too. Yeah.
I love Kobe, but I feel like you kind of said it since he passed away. He's kind of been like maybe put on a higher pedestal than what he actually is. I think he's like one of the greatest players ever, obviously, but I think putting him, like, there's a lot of guys that will put him at 1, and I think they're crazy.
Yeah,
like,
no,
absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
But I feel like respectfully, he's like pushing top 5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen people put Kobe outside of the top 10 too, which I don't really...
Yeah.
Like, the one guy I saw make that, he made a good argument for it, so I'll leave it at that.
Who was it?
It was this dude on TikTok, like, who's actually, like, really knowledgeable. And he made a really good argument. I don't agree with it, but he did make a good argument. I couldn't, like, debate it that hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the issue with the NBA, which is what I just touched on, it has been in so many different eras. When you look at the 80s, as much as that era is glamorized, scoring was easier then than it was in the 90s, which is crazy to think about. But if you look at some of the scores from the 80s, they were higher than they are now. So it's sort of changed in the 90s where it became much more defense-centric. And I will say that a big reason for that was the Detroit Pistons bad boys team. That's what changed the entire culture of the NBA. And most people that are NBA fans of that time period or higher ups in the NBA won't want to say that, but they allowed a lot more aggressive defense up until the early 2000s when LeBron came in. And it felt like at that point, then the NBA realized this could be our replacement of Jordan. We need to not necessarily change the rules to make it easier for LeBron to score, but make it more offense-centric, because at that point, that's also when the NFL went more offense-centric as well. They started to realize that points is what drives fans to games. So the eras change all the time. And I think that's what makes it so hard about the NBA. Same with the NFL.
Yeah, I agree with you, definitely. And, like, the main rule, obviously, that everyone talks about is the hand check rule, which is, like, you don't even realize how impactful that rule was until now, and until you, like, really break down a film session with it. Like, just how difficult it was to score, like, late 80s and then throughout the 90s compared to nowadays. I'm not saying, like, bring the hand check back or anything. I don't think the hand check should be allowed in the NBA. I think it's a foul every time. But you are right in that sense where the NBA made the right move to turn offensive-centric, and it's proven now, like, especially with the popularity of a guy like LeBron and where he took the NBA, they made the right move. And it's all come to fruition now that he broke the scoring record. Like, just a great hats off to him. Like, an amazing career, obviously.
Mm-hmm. And how many more years until Bronny is in the league? It's 2 seasons from now?
Yeah, I think he'll get drafted in like 2 or 3 years because he's a senior in high school. So he'll probably do a year or two.
Do you think that Bronny will go one and done? Because I've read a lot of different reports that as great as a high school player as he is, there's a lot of people that think he just has a lot of athletic ability and still needs to work on his game, which you can do in college for 2 years. But at that point, LeBron's going to be, 41?
Yeah.
So what do you guys think about that? Because I just heard so many differentiating things about whether Bronny goes lottery the first after his one and done, or if he stays in college to work on his game.
Well, you see, like, the fact that, like, teams know that LeBron is going to want to go to wherever he goes kind of, like, opens up the doors for him to go one and done, even though if he's not, like, ready to play after one season. So, I mean, I could see him being a junior in college before he enters the draft, and I don't really think LeBron will have any issue playing that to that point, because I haven't seen, like, any remote regression. I mean, granted, he's been missing, like, a couple more games every year, but he has not lost a step in his game. Like, he's literally averaging 30 points at 38, 39 years old. I think he'll hold out even if it takes him to senior year, and I think Bryce is way better than Bronny, and I think he actually has a way better chance of going one and done. So I think he would have the chance to be in the league for both of them playing.
Mm-hmm. Well, also, I'm pretty sure that the NBA's one and done rule is going to be out soon. I'm not sure exactly when, but I know they're going back to you can declare for the draft out of high school. I'm not sure if that will apply. It's not going to apply to Bronny because this is his last year in high school, but that is coming soon. So that could impact Bronny's lottery projections because, like, NBA teams have shown a tendency to go for a younger player rather than an upperclassman in college. But I do think Bronny's going to be a good player in the NBA. I'm not sure about one and done, though. Like, I think that he'll need to do another year because we've seen different point guards at his size like struggle in the college game. Like the one that comes to mind of recent is Jeremy Roach on Duke. He was the number 1 point guard in our 2020 high school class. And he just has really struggled in the college game because his jump shot isn't that great and he struggles to find ways to get to the rim against bigger and more athletic guys. I don't think Bronny's going to have that issue just based off what I've seen. Like, I think Bronny has a great jumper and he's shown a knack to get to the rim also. So I think that he'll need probably a year or two of development in college before he gets to the NBA, but I think when he does get to the NBA, he'll be a great player. I also do agree with you about Bryce being more of a one and done because I see the size differential with Bryce being an impact in that.
Yeah, because Bryce is like 6'6", 6'8", something like that.
Yeah, and
Bronny's like 6'4", right?
Yeah, and Bryce is like a freshman or something right now, so like he's got a lot of growing to do.
Yeah.
So I see, and that actually goes back into my other point, which the NBA is going to take the one and done rule out. Maybe we could see Bryce declare out of high school like LeBron did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it will certainly be interesting to see. It is interesting that LeBron was one of the last star players to go one and done. There'd been a couple other guys after him. Probably the most famous example was Sebastian Telfair, whose career unfortunately never panned out the way he thought it was going to. I mean, he got his solid 11-year career, but not anywhere what he thought it was going to be when he was being talked about in the national media in the early 2000s. But it does.
Yeah, okay, shitty Mike Aiden is back. So where'd you leave off?
All right, so I was saying that when it comes to comparing high school guys, it's interesting to see that there's certain guys like Kobe and LeBron who do so well going from high school to the NBA and become these top-tier players. And then there's other guys like Sebastian Telfair and a teammate that he actually had in Portland, Martell Webster, who were both drafted high out of high school. And they had solid careers, but nobody's going to confuse Sebastian Telfair with LeBron James at all. So certain guys just are able to do it better than others. I don't know if it's a physicality thing, that LeBron was just so much bigger than everyone else coming out of high school, where Sebastian was still like a mid-sized point guard, or it's just that some of these guys are better prepared. I don't really know what it is that makes a guy click more than someone else going from high school to the NBA. Because there's certain guys that are able to do it, and that's what worries me the most about getting rid of the one and done, is we're going to see, maybe we'll get the diamond in the rough of maybe a Kobe, maybe LeBron, but the biggest fear of the NBA has always been getting rid of it. We'll see so many more Sebastian Telfairs, and that's not what the NBA needs to make their product better.
Didn't Stephon Marbury go out of high school too?
I want to say that he went to college first, but I can look that up.
I think he went to college. There have been a lot that did. Like, the other one I think of, well, he's one of the more obvious ones, is Kwame Brown. Yeah, Stephon Marbury went to Georgia Tech.
Oh, okay.
But
yeah, I thought he went to school for 1 year, so yeah, he did do the one and done.
Yeah.
Which is, it's interesting because him and Sebastian are cousins, so it seemed like the one and done worked way better for Mayberry than going out of high school did for Telfair. And again, there's no knock on Telfair. It makes sense why he did it. If you read his story where he grew up, he wanted to make his life better for his family. I can't knock someone for that, especially because at that point there was no NIL. You either had to get paid or go to college, and maybe you get hurt. Maybe people start to think maybe you won't be as good, and this is the highest you can go. So you can't knock these guys for trying it. But at the higher up level, if you're the commissioner of the NBA and Adam Silver, it's hard to say this will make the product of the NBA better.
Yeah, I agree. And like with the NIL, it kind of eliminates guys like Telfair like needing to go to the NBA to provide for their families immediately. Like the NIL kind of offers college athletes in his shoes that affordable option, you know, to go to college for free, and on top of that, make good enough money to hold your family up for a year, and then obviously go to the NBA. We should talk about the Kyrie trade too, and the implications of that.
This week has been so crazy that they pushed it back.
Yeah, I know. That got, because that was what, Saturday or Sunday? I think that went through.
Yeah,
Sunday.
It was the day after we uploaded the last episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm really excited for this because I sort of like the Dallas Mavericks roster outside of Kyrie and Luka. Like, I know that they're going to be sort of, how do I say, they're going to lack a lot on the defensive end in their backcourt. I think that where the league has shifted to an offensive oriented league, I think that they can get away with Kyrie and Luka as their defensive guards. Like, I'm not sure if it's going to be like stellar or anything like that, but I think that their offense is going to outweigh their defense a little bit in that aspect. And then I look at the roster around it, like, I don't hate it. I sort of like Dwight Powell. He's a little bit on the older side, but I think that there's something there for him. And then the obvious one is Christian Wood, like, as your third option. I think he's one of the more underrated players in the league. And just him, providing that length and defense that you lack at the guard position. I think that if Kyrie and Luka are able to push drives into guys like Powell and Christian Wood, it's going to pay dividends for them. And like we were saying earlier, with the West being super tight, like, the Mavericks are the 6th seed right now, but they're so close, to getting that 1 seed. And it's not always about just getting the 1. Like, it's about putting yourself up higher in the standings towards the upper echelon where you're at least getting home court in the first round, maybe the second. So I think that this move was good for Dallas, and I think it'll be even better if they can extend Kyrie in the offseason, which I heard it was supposed to be like a 2 or 3 year deal, which I think works better for Dallas because you don't necessarily want to lock into a guy like Kyrie long term. But 2 years, 3 years isn't necessarily long term. It gives you a little bit more flexibility if you need it.
Yeah, so I do want to push back. I think Kyrie is a very capable defender, and I feel like guys like throw him under the bus on the defensive end a lot, but I've seen him, he can guard like basically any guard in the league. Mm-hmm. Basically. And I know Luka's slow on defense, but he's like probably the best scorer like right now. I know LeBron it became the best scorer ever, but like as of this moment, Luka is the best scorer, probably him or Embiid. Mm-hmm. And he's going to outweigh that. And before I came here, I was watching like some of the Sixers pregame, and they were talking about the scoring in bunches between Kyrie and Luka. Luka does most of his scoring. He actually leads the league in scoring in the first quarter, and he scores. He's like one of the top 5 in third quarter scoring. Kyrie's in one of the top 10 of second quarter scoring, and he's the first leading scorer for the fourth quarter. Almost 10 points, and Luka has almost 12 in the first on average. Mm-hmm. So that's like crazy offense efficiency. Like, they're going to be able to work just fine together, I think. And I know it's a very ESPN stat, but like they have guys like Tim Hardaway Jr. I think he's one of the most underrated scorers in all of the league right now. They got Reggie Bullock, good wing defender. Yeah,
he's a great defender, and he can space the floor for you.
They did get rid of 2 good pieces, but I feel like if Kyrie signs, then this could work out very well for them. I was very wary when I found out that Kyrie was going to be a free agent this season just because I was a Sixers fan when Jimmy Butler left. I think it would really hurt like Kyrie's image if he did leave the Mavs for any reason at all, because people think that he just destroys every team he goes. I don't think it's the case. Like, he's not wrong for wanting to leave the Nets for a multitude of reasons. The Celtics experiment just never worked out. I mean, he was in the wrong for wanting to leave the Cavs. That just hurt his career a lot. But
yeah, I think if he could go back to that moment, I think he would change, honestly, because I agree with you. And just in terms of everything, like, you saw when he went to Boston, it just wasn't a good fit necessarily. Like, the city of Boston and Kyrie don't mix. Mm-hmm. And then Brooklyn was just a complete disaster. Front office was a mess. Their head coach was never really figured out. They really struggled to build chemistry in their big 3 because they couldn't really stay on the court together. And when they did, it was sort of tough for them to really build anything. So I agree with you that him leaving Brooklyn was a good idea for him. I think leaving Boston was a good idea for him. But it all stems from the original departure. I'm not sure why he wanted to leave Cleveland in the first place at all. I know he wanted his own team, but no one thought of him necessarily as a Robin to the Batman. He was obviously on paper, but we all knew Kyrie was good enough to be a Batman. We all knew it. And I think he just wanted the validation for whatever reason, but I'm not really sure. But I think that was the wrong move. And I think there could be a case that LeBron would still be in Cleveland if Kyrie had stayed and they kind of just built the rest of their careers there. I think that a case could be made. I know LeBron wanted to go to LA for a multitude of reasons outside of basketball, but I'm not sure. I think that Kyrie's staying there, and I think it would have been tough for LeBron to leave that.
Mm-hmm. I do think this is really interesting now that the D'Angelo Russell trade just happened. If he were to leave the Mavs, that would kind of be like character assassination, but it could work well for him. Just hear me out here. Kyrie Irving, D'Angelo Russell, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis.
Will they be able to afford it?
I mean, I think, isn't D'Angelo Russell a free agent this year? I think he is.
I do not know.
He might be. I'm going to check right now.
Mm-hmm.
If they can restructure a deal that would keep all four of them there, that is just insane offense.
It would be insane, but I have a lot of worries about that. The biggest one being that LeBron's getting older, and while his game has blown up, Jack mentioned earlier that his injuries have gone up, and not substantially, especially because LeBron was so healthy throughout the majority of his career, that anytime he gets hurt, it's going to be a big deal. However, we've never really seen a player play up to this type of caliber by the time he gets to 30 years old. I'm not saying LeBron can't do it. We just saw Tom Brady play his ass off until he was 45. So, LeBron can do it, but he needs to stay healthy throughout the entire thing because AD definitely won't. Mm-hmm. And AD is not getting any younger. And if AD goes down, there's a concern there. Then you also have to worry about the fact that you have two point guards playing the court at the same time. And I don't really see D'Angelo Russell as an off-ball guard.
He's done it well in the past.
He's done it well enough, but I just don't know if it would work with this lineup that you're proposing.
Yeah, and he is a free agent. I'm just saying if he's not going to ever get a max contract again, probably.
Mm-hmm.
But I think with some restructuring, they could all possibly be on the same team.
I mean, it's possible, definitely, but I'm not sure if Kyrie's a guy who's going to want to take that big of a pay cut anyway. I agree with you. I don't think he's going to get a max, no matter how bad he wants it, but I think he'll want something pretty lucrative. So it'll be tough for the Lakers to afford it. But then again, they are a Los Angeles market, so I wouldn't be surprised if they could.
Mm-hmm.
It just, to me, it sort of feels like the 2012-2013 Lakers that did all these huge signings. Everyone thought that the Lakers were turning a page, and then it did not end up happening that way. And it kind of totally destroyed Kobe's legacy because that team after that basically went to rebuild with having Kobe Bryant around. And it feels like if the Lakers were to do that, that seems what they're setting up to do again.
I could see that. That's a good correlation. Just a bunch of aging superstars who hit the decline at the worst time for them.
Except for Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, literally. And Kobe would be the LeBron.
Yeah, which is crazy that these guys that were younger than Kobe, that were still more athletically gifted at certain things, totally declined. I mean, Dwight Howard was never really a starter after that. Definitely not the superstar he was when he signed that contract. Jeremy Lin fully disappeared. And Steve Nash, Nash is at the end of his career pretty much already, but Kobe almost single-handedly led that team and all of them got hurt, which was not what that roster was set up to do or be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And before we move into football, I just want to quickly talk about Cam Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
3 straight 40-point games immediately after Kyrie gets off the roster.
Yeah.
It kind of makes you wonder, how many guys are, in his position where they just need the guy in front of them to go away to like have that happen.
Yeah. And yeah, Cam Thomas is a special player, honestly. Like his bag is really deep. He can score on just about every way on the court. And those guys that can do that have proven to be extremely successful in the NBA. He's not going to be 40 points for 3 straight games. He'll probably never do that again. But I could see Cam Thomas being a 20-point per game scorer in the league.
Yeah.
And I don't know. We've seen guys take deep fall-offs, after having some good stretches, but I don't really see that with him. Like, I think that his game serves well for today's NBA.
Yeah, people are comparing it to Lynn's sanity, but I
don't think so.
No, it's not at all.
Yeah, and like Lynn relied too much on his IQ and like being a floor general, and that's kind of why his stretch was so magnificent. And then, when teams started to figure him out and he had to rely on his athleticism more. He couldn't do it because he wasn't really that athletic. That's kind of why you saw that fall off. And a lot of teams gave him shots. Like, it wasn't necessarily because of not getting a chance. It was more just, he dwindled down and he settled in as a pretty solid role player. Like, remember when he was having a pretty good year for Brooklyn or Charlotte and then broke his leg, like, midway through the season and never came back because it was just such a terrible injury? I was so upset because I thought he was building something like to be a solidified bench player, maybe even a 6th man of the year candidate. Like, I could have seen that, but I think Cam Thomas will have a higher trajectory than that.
Yeah, and I feel like now that they have Dorian Finney-Smith and I'm blanking, who else do they get?
Dinwiddie.
Yeah, they're going to be really deep. I don't think KD would want to stick around though. Like, that's like a team to like build on with like the future.
Yeah, do you see Durant requesting a trade before the deadline? Yeah,
there's not enough time.
I mean, theoretically he could, like, because I'm sure a team would jump. Like, what time is the deadline tomorrow? It's like 4, right?
Oh, it's like tomorrow soon?
Yeah, it's tomorrow.
Yeah, there's no way he could request out and get out.
Yeah.
But the thing is, he might not even have to request. We see this a lot in the baseball trade deadline where teams don't really request or guys don't request. It's more that other teams will sniff around to see if there's a player available. There is a chance the Nets have put him on the trade block and just haven't really been that out about it because they're trying to get as much as possible in return.
Mm-hmm.
I sort of doubt it. That's not really how the NBA trade deadline usually works. But considering he is the last star player left from that, what was supposed to be a monster team with him, Harden, and Kyrie, there is a chance that there's teams sniffing around seeing if there's a possibility that the Nets will give up on him. I don't see that happening considering that Thomas is playing so well, considering they just got a couple solid pieces in return for Kyrie. Maybe they want to play with Durant and just see how the season ends up. And then if things don't go well, go on with him. But at this point for the Nets, I don't see why I would trade him unless Durant had asked for a trade, which he didn't at this point. So I don't see why you would do that.
Yeah.
So I just want to quickly get into football. Obviously the Super Bowl, this is recorded on Wednesday, so the Super Bowl is going to be in 4 days from now. I haven't really heard much on like Patrick's ankle at all this week.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to assume that it's healthy.
Yeah.
And he's good to go. I mean, he's going to be good to go regardless, but I'm going to assume that he's in like the 80 to 90 percentile for health.
Yeah, I agree with
the
you.
Ankle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't really want to make a prediction on this game until like I see how he's like moving.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I'm sort of going off of Mahomes is healthy because I think even if he's 80% healthy, he's going to play like he's 100% healthy when game time rolls around and adrenaline kicks in and things like that. This is going to be a great game. I think this is really setting up to be one of the better Super Bowls we've seen recently. Probably the best since the 2017 one with Eagles-Patriots. We've sort of had some duds, like the one after that was Patriots-Rams, which was 13-3. That sucked. And then like the Chiefs-49ers one has probably been the best since then. You could argue last year, but then again, you have like, there's the Buccaneers-Chiefs one gets thrown in there, which was a dud. I think that this is probably going to be the best one since Eagles-Patriots, and for a lot of reasons. Number one being the high-powered offenses. Like, I think a lot of points are going to be put up this weekend. it really, really starts in the trenches for both sides. Like, if the Eagles are going to move the ball on KC, they're going to need to establish a run game, in my opinion. Sort of get Chris Jones on his heels, make him guess, run, and pass, because the Eagles do a lot of the RPO. And if you can get Chris Jones in a rush attack when you are passing, it is a huge advantage because he is like the only rusher for them that really makes an impact. I'm not really scared of Karl Loftus, who would be probably number 2 for them. On the Chiefs side, if you are going to move the ball the way you want to, which is through the air, you are going to need to protect Mahomes every drop back. The Eagles' pressure gets there. We've seen all year, it gets there in a hurry. And Mahomes' mobility is going to be somewhat limited, we're assuming. You are going to need to protect Mahomes, and you're going to have to give him those extra seconds. And granted, we've also seen Mahomes on this ankle against Cincinnati make plays with his legs. So if you can give him that time and give him that space, I think the Chiefs will have a good game. And it's so close. Like, I don't even want to make a prediction right now necessarily, but I do think the Eagles are going to win this game purely because I think the roster is just a little bit better than Kansas City's. And again, they are very, very close. But I do think that the Eagles match up a little bit better. I think the Eagles' secondary is better. I think their defensive line is better. I even think their linebackers are better. And I think their safeties are better. And I think in the game like this, your defense is going to have to make a play. They're going to have to stop a drive. And I think that plays more into the Eagles' hands than the Chiefs. Like, I don't necessarily think the Eagles are going to move it at will, but I think they're going to move it enough to keep Mahomes off the field, if that makes sense, and limit Mahomes' opportunities. That bodes well for them. So I think the Eagles are going to pull out this game.
Slay, I'm going to ask you a question. If Tyreek Hill was still on the Chiefs roster, would you pick the Chiefs to win?
Oh,
I know my answer.
I honestly would not, to be honest with you. Just because I think that the Eagles' pass rush would make an impact enough to hold Tyreek Hill back, if that makes sense.
But how do you do that while simultaneously containing Travis Kelce? I don't think it's possible.
Well, it's the pass rush. That's what I'm saying. If you are in Mahomes' grill, he ain't even going to be able to throw the ball to either of them. Like, that's how the Eagles have really been great this year, is their pass rush gets home, and you have to make a split-second decision, throw to him. And I think the Eagles' coverage is good enough to where they can bump Kelce and Hill on the ball initially. And then if you give Mahomes 3.5, 4 seconds, that's going to be enough time for Kelce and Hill to go open. I don't think he's going to get that time.
And this is where the Tyreek Hill not re-signing him, it hurts the Chiefs. Because I disagree. I think if you have Hill, and this is what you're saying, how do you continue both of them? Yes, the Eagles' pass rush is good enough. They will get to Mahomes. I don't disagree with that. What I do think will happen, though, if you had Tyreek Hill on this team, there would be windows of opportunity that the Chiefs could take advantage of. And with that high-powered offense, I don't see how the Eagles can keep up with that. Now that they don't have Hill and your leading receiver outside of Kelce was Juju Smith-Schuster, the Eagles have a much better chance.
Mm-hmm.
These wide receivers, some of them are very fast. Kadarius Toney has great speed. Doesn't always make the best catches, but if you get him on the wing, which the Chiefs have done a very good job since they traded for him, he will be able to turn a corner and get upfield. Smith has very, very good hands. His route running is good. He just doesn't have that much speed. The Eagles are going to be able to keep up with that, and then it just comes down to containing Travis Kelce and also making sure that Pacheco, who's gone kind of underrated in the receiving game, he's had a couple great games rushing, making sure that Pacheco doesn't get any spaces either. Which, again, I think the Eagles will be able to do. The thing that worries me the most from the Eagles' perspective is how is this offense going to do? They've done a great job running the football. Jalen Hurts, at certain points this season, has done a great job throwing the football. But he hasn't had to do that recently and not just seared his shoulder as he had to throw for that many yards. The Eagles have just been able to run the ball. Chances are they'll still be able to do that with success, but in the hypothetical case that the run game is totally shut down, will Hurts be able to win them the game by himself? I just don't know the answer for that at this moment.
Well, you see, I'm a little more optimistic this time around because our last game against San Fran, we played a great defense and we beat them into submission to the point where they were punching and throwing our players around because they were so angry that they were one of the best defenses and they couldn't contain a quarterback that last year was considered like a Lamar from the thrift store. Mm-hmm. So I think the Eagles will be able to like pound Kansas City's defense like really early, but the reason I'm not willing to say that they're going to run away with this game is because they have Patrick Mahomes, and I don't think the defense is going to make any stops. I think Mahomes is going to keep narrowing the margin and even take the margin into his favor. So I don't really think the defense is going to give the Eagles offense any like thing to really worry about, to be honest.
I agree with you, and like the Chiefs defense is good, and they're getting L'Jarius Sneed back, which is a big addition for them on the outside. But I agree with you, like the Eagles just have so many high-powered names. You know, you go through Brown, Smith, and Goddard, and then just their run attack is basically unstoppable. It's been incredible. I think if the Eagles can find a way to get a lead early, I think that their run game will really carry them to victory. And this is, like I said earlier, like this is going to be an extremely tightly contested game. I see this coming down to one drive, one play. Like I could definitely see that, and I could see it swinging either way, 100%. Like the Eagles, I feel like have the roster to compete with a guy like Mahomes and Kelsey and Reed, and then the Chiefs have guys like Mahomes and Kelsey and Reed who carry their roster around them, and that's no knock on the roster. Just saying that Kelsey, Mahomes, and Reed are just on a different pedestal above their entire roster right now, except for Chris Jones. I think that the more well-rounded team will prevail in this game, so that's why I'm going to pick the Eagles, but don't get it twisted. I could see this going either way, 100%.
The other thing that I'm interested in seeing, and this has always been the knock on Andy Reid, especially in playoff games, Eagles fans remember this very well, is that when he was coaching the Eagles and they got huge leads, he was always still afraid to run the football, and teams were able to come back. I'm interested in seeing if the Eagles can pass rush, can get to Mahomes early, if he still tries to pass, or if he does try to go with runs, because there was certain points where the Eagles' run game was exposed. They've gotten much better as the season gone on, but that's how Washington was able to win their game, and it wasn't getting 5 or 6 yard carries. It was 2 yards here, 3 yards here. Maybe a little bit of a big run is like 6 yards, but most of the time it was just 2 to 3 yards pounding the Eagles' defense and making sure the Eagles' offense didn't get the ball. That's not something Reid is really known for, especially having Mahomes. He's totally gone away from running the football at all until he figured out that he had Isaiah Pacheco on this roster. I really don't trust either of these coaches. And I understand that Andy Reid is one of the most successful NFL coaches of all time when it comes to winning and getting in playoff games, but his success of winning playoff games until very, very recently is not that big. We all remember what happened with the Chiefs when they got blown out by the Colts. Not blown out, but they had a huge lead and then lost it because he didn't go conservative enough and was still being aggressive with a 20-point lead. People are saying that the head coach will help determine who wins the Super Bowl, and a lot of people are saying that favor goes to Andy Reid. I don't believe that for 1 second. Yes, they did win one Super Bowl coming back, but that was also because Kyle Shanahan was coaching for 49ers, who's also not been a successful coach in playoff games. So I don't really know who the advantage goes for in that, and that will be the thing that we have to look out for.
So, do you guys have anything else?
No, I don't, actually.
I just do want to say that Niners fans are officially the worst fans in the league.
Yeah, we've had our one experience with Niners fans, and wow. Yeah. Just as whiny as their players, we'll put it that way.
I actually kind of like Cowboys fans now because like they're at the point of like realization where they hate their team more than divisional rival teams do. Mm-hmm. And like they're not delusional anymore. They're actually kind of like Sixers fans almost.
Yeah.
Like just drunk in misery.
Yeah.
So I think that'll do it for this episode. We'll call it here. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next Saturday. Peace.